In 1972, a pediatrician named Alfred Steinschneider published a paper in the journal Pediatrics. The paper presented a theory about sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, the unexplained death of apparently healthy babies during sleep, which was killing approximately 7,000 American infants every year. Steinschneider proposed that SIDS might be caused by episodes of stopped breathing, apnoea, and suggested that infants who showed signs of apnoea should be monitored at home. The paper launched a medical industry. Home apnoea monitors, devices that attach to a baby's body and sounded an alarm if breathing stopped, became standard equipment for at-risk infants. Hospitals discharged high-risk newborns with monitors. Parents slept with the alarm units on their bedside tables. An entire generation of parents raised their children under the anxiety-inducing awareness that at any moment, a sound could mean their baby had stopped breathing. The paper was eventually discredited in deeply disturbing circumstances. But the home monitor it launched persisted, and the question it was trying to answer, how do you know if your sleeping baby is safe, is the question that has haunted parents for all of human history. Before the monitor existed, before the baby camera existed, before the audio receiver existed, mothers solved this problem in the only way available to them. They stayed close, they stayed awake, or they shared a bed with the baby, which carried its own significant risks. This is the history of what mothers did in the dark before technology existed to help them. And it is also the history of why the technology took so long to arrive. For most of human history, the answer to infant safety at night was proximity. In pre-industrial societies across most of the world, mothers slept with their infants. The shared bed was not a choice in the modern sense. It was the only arrangement that made sense given the conditions. Homes were small and cold. Infants needed warmth. Breastfeeding was easier if the infant was within reach. The mother's body heat kept the baby alive in conditions where a separate sleeping space might not. Bed sharing was universal, not because parents had decided it was the ideal arrangement, but because the alternatives were worse. A baby left alone in a cold room in a pre-central heating home faced genuine risk of hypothermia. A baby too far from the mother to hear easily represented a monitoring gap that could, in the worst case, be fatal. The risk of bed sharing was also real. A sleeping adult can roll onto an infant and suffocate them. This happened. It was called overlying, and it appears in mortality records going back centuries. Parish records in England, infant mortality data from European cities. Medical case reports from the 18th and 19th centuries all document overlying as a significant cause of infant death. The historical record also suggests that overlying was not always accidental. In conditions of extreme poverty, where an additional infant represented a resource crisis the family could not survive, overlying may have been a solution that could not be named as a solution. The mortality records do not distinguish between accident and intention. The historians who have studied them have noted that the rate of overlying deaths correlates with poverty in ways that are difficult to attribute entirely to chance. This is the darkest chapter in the pre-monitor history. Parents who loved their babies and slept with them out of necessity. Parents who did not have the option to love their babies and made decisions under duress that the mortality record captures only obliquely. The first mechanical response to the infant night safety problem was the cradle. Rocking cradles, separate from the adult bed, provided a sleeping space that kept the infant within earshot while reducing the risk of overlying. They appear in European art and literature from the medieval period onward, a sign that the concern about infant sleep safety was not new, even if the solutions were primitive. What the cradle provided was separation with proximity. The baby was not in the bed, but was close enough that the mother could hear normal infant sounds, the breathing, the small movements, the early cry, from her own sleeping position. What it could not provide was the specific alarm that a monitor provides, the signal that something had stopped that should be continuing. The medical understanding of infant sleep physiology, the recognition that brief breathing pauses were normal in infants, that prolonged pauses could be dangerous, and that a reliable alarm system could in principle save lives, did not exist until the 20th century. The technology capable of detecting breathing patterns in a wearable form did not exist until the electronics industry of the mid-20th century made it possible. Steinschneider's 1972 paper, despite the later discrediting of its central theory, catalyzed the development of home monitoring devices. By the 1980s, the home baby monitor, audio only, allowing parents to hear sounds from the baby's room, had become a consumer product widely available and widely adopted. The baby camera followed. Then the movement sensor that detects breathing through the mattress. Then the wearable sock that monitors oxygen levels. The technology has evolved rapidly, and it has done so in response to a need that has existed since the first human infant was laid down to sleep somewhere other than its mother's arms. Here is the part of this history that is rarely examined. The anxiety that drives the baby monitor market is not new. The specific anxiety, will my baby still be breathing when I go in to check, is as old as the recognition that infants die in their sleep for reasons that are not always explainable. For most of human history, that anxiety was managed by proximity, by staying close, by checking, by the light sleep that new parents across every culture have described. The state of partial wakefulness in which a parent remains available to an infant's sounds without being fully conscious. The monitor did not create parental anxiety about infant sleep. It gave that anxiety a technological expression and, in some cases, a commercial amplification. The alert that sounds when a breathing sensor detects a pause is providing information that parents before monitors could only approximate through proximity and instinct. What technology has done is extend the range at which a parent can maintain that vigilance. The parent can be in the next room, the next floor, and still receive the signal that something has changed in the baby's breathing. Whether that extension of range increases anxiety or reduces it depends on the parent and the device. What it has unquestionably done is change the geography of infant care, allowing sleeping spaces to be separate in ways that were impossible when the only monitoring tool available was a mother's own proximity to her sleeping child. The women who slept with their babies for all of human history before the monitor existed were not failing to use better technology. They were the technology. Their bodies, their light sleep, their immediate response to sound were the monitoring system. It was imperfect. It sometimes failed catastrophically. But it was what existed, and they used what existed. The monitor replaced a function that had been performed by human presence for as long as infants have needed protection in the dark. Subscribe if you want to keep following this. Every week, the history of what it has cost to keep children alive, and how that cost has changed.